This is Baseline, a podcast about baseball by people who know nothing about baseball. I'm Kyle.
I'm Andrew, and we know nothing about baseball.
And Andrew, it's the start of spring training.
This is true.
How's your spring training? How's your CES?
Oh, I've been doing lots of training this spring. You know, I've been training lots of springs, actually. They're going to be very
okay. So
springy.
Spring's been learning from you.
Right.
It sounds a little bit, actually, it's still, I guess, technically winter, right? We're not actually in spring yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's called spring training, but it's 28 degrees here, Fahrenheit, so, like, it's cold. It's not spring. It's no good.
Yeah. Yeah, and, I mean, the place where baseball, spring training, Major League Baseball spring training happens is usually in a much warmer part of the country, being either Florida or Arizona. And so likely, at least the idea is that it's a lot warmer there. I guess currently, yesterday when games started, it was still about 50 Fahrenheit. So kind of cold, kind of like Bay Area cold, if you would.
Right.
And not really conducive for baseball. But the nice part, and I think the main difference between those two leagues, we'll talk about them in a bit, but because I think I want to spend most of this episode talking about spring training in particular, now that it's started at least, is in Florida, it's going to be real humid, but in Arizona, it's going to be dry as a bone for the most part. Unless you're going to get some sort of...
Now, they go back and forth, yes? Or no?
The teams?
Yeah.
They don't, no. So
Oh, okay. So they just stick where they are.
They do, which is nice. If you ever go out to spring training in Florida or in Arizona, I personally have only been to Arizona a few times, but you can just go watch, the Dodgers go play at their home stadium in one small little suburb of Phoenix, Arizona, and then drive 20 minutes and go watch the Giants play, and then drive another 10 minutes and go watch the Cubs play.
Right.
It's kind of cool because they're not having to fly back and forth and spend a whole bunch of time. It's all sort of about the development of the team and about, I don't know, trying to spend time with your own team and meet your teammates and get yoked, I guess, if you would, during the season, and try and prepare yourself for actual baseball that counts. I think that's one of the biggest things. I was looking up a couple of articles. There's one, actually, we were talking about the weather. There's one over on AccuWeather that says why MLB teams go to Arizona and Florida for spring training. I'm going to put it in the show notes. You can check that out, goodstuff.fm/baseline or baseline.show. It's a very, very in-depth look at why the Arizona Cactus League and the Florida Grapefruit League, which is the name of that.
That's a heck of a name.
Yeah. Why they are held in those two places. It's a really, really interesting read, I guess.
Now, I believe that they should be required to pitch grapefruits instead of the ball.
That's fair. I mean, oranges seem to be more baseball adjacent.
Right. And also more connected with Florida, but whatever.
True. There's got to be something about grapefruits that make them maybe more baseball friendly, easier to hit a little. It's like a corked bat version of an orange, right? You got a little bit more, I don't know, kind of like bounciness to a grapefruit, maybe, or the color is easier to spot in a field. Maybe that's kind of like those are the only two reasons I could think. It's kind of like a softball, more or less. Pomelo.
Yeah, but it must be nice, particularly in Arizona, where all of the baseball teams are within the same county, basically, to be a baseball fan that lives in those areas in spring training, because like all of baseball comes to you for a handful of weeks.
Yes. Yeah. Well, in a lot of the, I guess, tourist season around those areas, if you're thinking like Peoria or Scottsdale or any of those sort of like smaller, almost like retirement areas of Phoenix, Arizona, some of the season, at least the sort of milder part, like we were saying earlier, of the season, is filled with baseball folks. You know, folks traveling from all over the place, all over the U.S., from L.A., just to go see their team for games that don't count, yet still cost money to go watch. And also, I guess you have a major team in that area now. You've got your Arizona Diamondbacks, who I believe were also one of those expansion teams to 1998, 1999, that time. They had Randy Johnson early days, so they became like this big powerhouse National League team, but they sort of have that turf as well. So you're not just getting like Arizona Diamondback fans in that area, you're getting from the 1960s or so, all of the fans that have been going to spring training games for the teams that have been Arizona based for that long. And so you kind of get like this interesting amalgamation of a whole bunch of different fans in that area. I've also found an article over at thebaseballcodes.com that says the differences between spring training and the regular season sometimes aren't so different after all. And it gets into depth, obviously, about some of the interesting quirks of spring training baseball. But I wanted to kind of put it to you from what you've seen so far, if you've either watched any games or heard any games or even tried to watch any games. We can talk about that. What you may have noticed about spring training baseball that is kind of different from what you have seen of normal, regular Major League Baseball.
Right. So I tried to listen to the Reds' opening game for spring training and was thwarted by MLB. But so I have not yet witnessed the spectacle of spring training baseball versus regular baseball. But hopefully we'll get that sorted soon.
I have also tried out the tv.youtube.com, YouTube TV's service for sort of out-of-market stuff. And I have family up in the Bay Area. And so I'm sort of piggybacking off of my brother Kenny's YouTube subscription. And he's able to sign in for me up there. So I can basically unlimited DVR Giants games and have them slurped up into YouTube TV's service. I had some trouble watching it today for some reason. Like I could watch it on regular Wi-Fi from one place, but when I tried to access it from Wi-Fi here on the East Coast, it wouldn't let me. Kind of strange. I'm not sure what the issue is there.
Yeah.
It seems to like be blocking it some of the time, but not all of the time. But I think YouTube TV might be a somewhat good opportunity for me to. However, it will not allow me to listen to radio broadcasts. And for me, that's like I gotta have my radio.
Yeah.
And there's no way I'm gonna be able to get that signal down in Southern California. So I'm gonna have to probably jump on some sort of MLB at-bat subscription. The nice part about that is if you aren't looking for the TV subscription, you can, I believe, do just the at-bat audio, which is $3 a month or so. Really, really, really small, negligible in the grand scheme of things. When you look at a whole season and it's like $120 for all the teams. And then you look at one team, even if you just wanted to watch the Reds, like $95 to watch that. It just seems really unreasonable for especially like an out-of-market thing for, what are you going to watch? 6 months or so? I guess it's not that bad. Now that I think about it, it's actually not too bad spread across. But it's just one. I mean, that's one channel. One team, one channel. Still not that much.
Yeah, I would have to investigate further to see if there's a way that I could perhaps get the at-bat, just the audio, and then somehow get video of games through some other method.
Right, because that's not going to get piped into your normal cable subscription, right? It's not like you could call up AT&T and say, hey, add so-and-so to my subscription.
Right. Well, I'm a terrible millennial and I don't have a cable subscription anyway.
You already cut that cord. It's not going to happen.
Oh, yeah. I never had that cord to start with.
That's fair. I mean, now that you can, the thing with MLB at bat or MLB.tv. I'm just going to go with MLB.tv for now, just because that implies sort of the visual aspect of it. I have been subscribed to that for a long time, and was subscribed to that. I want to say 2012 is when I first subscribed and was out of market, and was watching on like an iPhone 4. Still pretty great back then. And the amount of innovation, I guess, that they've made in the meantime is negligible, to be honest. Like there aren't that many changes that they've done. But actually watching a spring training game, there have been a lot of innovations to the game of baseball that I think could be incorporated somehow into my viewing experience that they're not doing right now. So I'm going to get into maybe my first impressions of a game that I watched of spring training. I caught the first. It was the game that I actually took a photo of and sent to you. I'm scrolling back in our chat now. I was watching the Mariners and the Athletics from a airport bar. It looks like it was a bunch of TVs kind of squished together.
Is that what it was? I couldn't tell what exactly the environs were, but airport bar makes sense.
Yes.
Because it's like four TVs, smushed together to make one big. It
kind of looks like you walked into a Best Buy and they're trying to like show you like, oh no, this TV's pretty good.
Right.
So I was watching this. Actually, if you want to pull this up, it's a pretty interesting look at some of what has changed and what is different of a spring training game. And I wanted to kind of point some of these out first before we got into some of what the articles that I've got in the show notes are pointing out. So I would say, first of all, the thing I'm going to go kind of left to right, I guess. You'll notice a Mariners logo and a Padres logo stacked on top of one another here. One of the differences of regular Major League Baseball games is that during spring training, a lot of these stadiums are actually split between two teams, and you'll get both of the teams training at the same facility on, I guess, kind of on the same grounds, but splitting the games between those two teams in that sort of minor league sized stadium. So you're going to fit maybe 10 to 15,000 people in there. It's not going to be the 50 to 60,000 that you'll get in a normal stadium.
Right.
So that's kind of a sort of weird thing that nothing, it does not happen during the regular season. To the left of that, actually, now I'm going right to left, but you understand. There is a clock, and the clock isn't lit up in the photo I sent you, but you can sort of see like LED numbers that are sitting behind there.
Little segments, yeah.
This is something new that I have not seen this year, and maybe this is unique simply to the Mariners/Padres stadium here, but they are timing and showing time to the pitcher after every single pitch. So when they throw a pitch and the catcher catches it, the umpire calls it ball strike, it gets thrown back to the pitcher. The pitcher then, I believe, has around 15 seconds to then throw his next pitch. So we had sort of mentioned in a previous episode that there isn't a timer set for baseball, and a game could last as long as a game lasts, but there are parts of the game now, this is sort of new to me, that they're trying to add time to increase the speed of play and try and create this regular cadence of pitches so that pitchers aren't just sitting on the mound rubbing the baseball for 25 to 30 seconds looking at someone who may be leading off of second and not throwing the ball.
Yeah, I'm reading this is the pitch clock.
Yeah. Does the does the pitch clock idea intrigue you at all?
It does a little bit, because I've been reading a little bit, that Major League Baseball has been trying to increase the pace of play, as they call it. Try and, I guess, speed up games.
Right.
So the pitch clock is one of the ways that they're doing that.
Yeah, they're also I
think it'll be interesting.
I think the timer that I'm most familiar with, at least over the last 5 seasons or so, is the one that they will have in between innings to try and say, like, hey, it has been 2 minutes and 15 seconds, and now we're back from commercial. You need to start pitching now. You can't just keep warming up and warming up. Same thing happens when you put a new pitcher in. You've got a certain amount of time to have that pitcher warm up actually on the field, and then they need to start the game. You have to start throwing actual pitches to folks at bat.
Yeah. One of the things, in talking about starting this podcast with some friends and talking to them about baseball, one of the things that I heard most from people is that they just think baseball is slow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to watch it on TV because it takes forever. So I think that anything that they do to make the game progress a little faster is probably helpful to the overall viewership of the game. But I can definitely see why purists are concerned.
Yeah, for me, it's as someone watching the game, I don't want to see that clock. Like, whether or not that clock is in the mind of the pitcher, or if it is over in the dugout and the coach is having to wave the pitcher down and say, like, hey, it's been 15 seconds, throw the ball. Or whether it's like up in the stands somewhere, just get it off of the nationally televised screen for me, because all that does is add anxiety for me to, like, throw the pitch. Is he going to throw the pitch? Is he not going to throw the pitch? What would happen if he balked? Would he have to look towards second? What if he threw the first? Does it reset the clock? Like, there are so many different parts of that that I just think aren't. It makes me focus too much on the time and not on the strategy. And as someone who, I guess, has watched baseball without that clock being visible, it was just distracting. And that's my first kind of gut reaction. Maybe I will feel differently when I see it in person. I don't think that the other part of this, and the other thing that you may see to the left of a pitcher like this during a spring training game, is the manager. The manager sitting outside of the dugout, sitting in like a fold-up chair, like in the periphery of one of these frames during a televised game. And the reason that they're doing that is to just get a better perspective of what's happening and get a view of how the pitcher's doing, talk to the catcher, a little bit closer, so they're not just giving signs, they're actually physically speaking to them and getting to talk to the players on the field. Most of what happens in spring training is about conditioning, and not just conditioning people's like physical abilities to play the game, but their mental processes of working with that manager, working with that defense, working with the offense. It could be folks who have never played in the majors before as well, or they were in like A ball for a while, AA, AAA, whatever, and now they're finally with a major league team, and they need to listen to what the umpires are saying, or they need to sort of kind of grok the situation, because it is and can be very different from regular minor league play. Okay, let's go then from left to right a little bit. I'm going to point out the pitcher's jersey next. That is a Mariner pitching right now. And you may notice that his jersey is not typical Mariners colors. I don't know if you're familiar with the Seattle Mariners at all.
I am not, but that uniform is not familiar to me. So
typical Mariners will, and especially if they are at home, they will wear usually white or some sort of darker blue jersey to match the color of their caps. That is typical during the regular season attire. But during spring training, you usually, and I believe this is the majority of the time, will wear one jersey only. Whether you're at home or away, you will wear a jersey that, one, is specifically constructed to allow for greater airflow in that Florida/Arizona heat, and also be a completely different color from the typical jerseys that you would wear during the regular season. And I think this is probably twofold. This is, somewhat a like, let's make it be different from regular season because these games don't count type of thing. And also marketability. You can sell a different looking jersey to people going to spring training than you can for the people who are going to an actual stadium. And it makes it like, oh, hey, right, I got this special jersey. It has the Cactus League thing on the shoulder.
Limited edition.
Yes, limited edition, exactly. And also it can be kind of off-brand a little bit. Like you'll see actually to the bottom right, the Mariners logo is an M over sort of their nautical looking thing in the background. That is not the normal Mariners logo. That is absolutely the Mariners spring training logo. It's really strange to see, actually, because the logo on the hat also matches that same M with the thing behind it. So it's kind of odd to see these, because they don't look like normal baseball a lot of times, even if you watch them on TV, and the stance of the pitcher looks the same, and the camera angle, showing the pitching mound and home plate looks pretty much the same. But it has like teams that you've never seen before, even though you may have seen the Mariners and the A's play before. I think that's kind of it for the most part.
One thing that I wanted to point out on this picture is the stat block, because that kind of reminded me, one of the things that I've been thinking about is how much of a stat-focused game baseball is compared to other sports. Like, baseball is really the game to be into if you're a statistician, because there's a lot of things that people keep track of, and that, I recognize a handful of the things in these stat blocks, but other things I'm like, I don't even know, like a K/BB just doesn't mean anything to me. So I think in the future we'll want to have a episode about stats, so we can talk about the importance of statistics to the game throughout history. And there are people who their enjoyment of baseball is derived from the statistics.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that ties both to the analytical portion of baseball, like folks either deciding whether or not to trade someone, where to put them, whether they should stand next to first base or in the gap between first base and second base for a particular batter, is typically decided by objective metrics of whether or not this batter has done this or that during their time at the plate. There's also the term sabermetrics. I'm sure we've said it before on the show, but that is sort of ideally it's the objective measure of baseball, and being able to apply statistics in a way that I think gives some meaning to the game outside of sort of the history and other subjective parts of baseball, and it breaks it down purely into these statistics. And the ones that you actually see on this screen, and I guess we should put this in the show notes now that we've talked about it so much, is that these are kind of the super high level statistics. These are the stats that you will definitely see game to game. And I'm happy to tell you the Ks and the BBs, those are strikeouts and base on balls or walks. So, yeah.
Would not have gotten that from the...
as a nugget, I guess as a trivia nugget for those listeners out there who did not know that Ks are strikeouts, a forward K, like a K that reads normally in a Roman language, is going to be a strikeout where someone has swung at the pitch. And a K that is backwards is what's called a strikeout looking. And that's where the pitch, the third strike in a count, is it happens without the player needing to swing at the ball. So that's a strikeout looking, and that's a backwards K. It's you will see. I think one of the places where you see this the most is at what's now Oracle Park, but AT&T Park, where the Giants play. They have a big wall every time that there's a strikeout. K goes on the wall, and you'll have some forward Ks and backward Ks. It's pretty interesting to see, just to kind of count the number of strikeouts. And again, yes, absolutely, that is a metric by which Hall of Fame level pitchers are measured, and that is, I mean, home runs, innings, ERA, all of that is stuff that is attributed to a pitcher. Now, the interesting part is, had I not said that the pitcher was a Mariner and the batter was an A, I was curious to know whether you thought that these statistics on the screen were for the batter or the pitcher.
I figured that they were for the pitcher. If only just because of how the shot is framed.
Good point. But that's one of those things where during spring training, they will give you, and you'll see on the screen here, last season's statistics. Sometimes they'll give you statistics for the player in AA ball, AAA ball, things that try to contextualize why they have been, quote unquote, brought up to play with the players in these sort of major league type games with other major league players, veterans, things like that. They likely will not give you spring training statistics until about a week or two into spring training. And even then, it's almost as if those don't matter. I've mentioned a number of times that spring training games don't count. And this article over at the baseballcodes.com is absolutely right to point out that the games don't matter. So, what is the strategy during these games, and why are teams playing them the way that they are playing them? I think if you are watching baseball during spring training for pure entertainment, you're kind of going to be disappointed. And that's because while, yes, the point is to win in a game like this, the point is always to win, but they are not necessarily playing competitively. You'll see scores like the one that you see in this screenshot of 0-8 in the top of the ninth, and they've just decided to put in another pitcher for no reason, or they decided to put in a new batter for no reason. The decisions that are made during spring training are typically not in favor of team level winning. It is all about personal development, and it is all about sort of team structure, I guess, like trying to decide whether or not a team is going to work well together, and whether putting someone in left field is going to be where you want them, or at second base, or at first base, or are they going to hit in the 3 slot, or are they going to hit in the 8 slot? Like that, those are the kinds of decisions that you'll see change game to game, and kind of, I don't want to say diminish the value of watching this for entertainment, but you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, because it's not gonna be like your super high level baseball play.
Right. It's practice. It's not necessarily
it's practice, but with the marketing spin that it is real life games that people are going to, and you could put your hard earned money to put your eyeballs on the field. And that's the part where like that's the hard pill to swallow, I think. I am super reluctant. I still do very much love spring training. And I think the main reason is because it doesn't count. I'm able to go out to a ballpark where there are far less people than there would be at a normal MLB stadium, and I can have a few beers, and I can see prospects that got called up to do spring training but will not make the team for another 1 year, 2 years. That in itself is kind of fun, and plus it's a lot warmer usually than most of the other places that people are playing. So I think that's, for me personally, that is one of the main reasons why I like going. Even though it does cost money, It's kind of fun.
So I just want to chime in that since we have started recording, the Reds have now finished their spring training game for today versus the Angels, and they've won 14-2.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't matter, but, it's fun to notice anyway.
So, there's a point of diminishing return, I think, you said that the Reds won, right?
Yeah.
So for the Angels, I guess, their idea of, okay, what can I do to maximize my my learnings, I guess, what maximize my value from this game is to likely they took the starters, the quote unquote starters out first inning, third inning, somewhere around there. Whenever the line score or the box score says the Reds blew them out of the water, that's likely where lots of changes are made. And if you listen to one of these games, I think the interesting bit is that you will hear so many commentators, both on TV and on radio, say, I don't know who's in left field. This is, and then they'll like stumble over the pronunciation of a name. It's kind of fun, I guess, in that way, where there are people where like you couldn't do any level of research to find this kind of stuff out, and it is all off the cuff improv for pretty much every single commentator out there, and I eat that up. I love that. Yeah,
but I think this gives us the opportunity to talk about scores and the way that baseball is scored. There's it's a little bit more complicated. On the picture that you sent me, it shows two numbers, and those are what are typically thought of as the score for baseball, but those are not the only numbers that get reported when you go and look up the score of a baseball game. And so I wanted to go over those real quickly for people who are perhaps even less familiar with baseball than I am.
Yeah, so this is what would be called the box score, sort of like let's get the whole picture of the winning pitcher, the losing pitcher, the final scores for both teams. You can probably give me, I don't know whether it'll have it in there, like total pitches. I'm curious to see what you got.
I'm clicking into box score now, and there's a lot in here. There is, let's see, there's pitchers. There's not, I'm looking for total pitches or whatever. Anyway, I'm just looking at there's basically the runs per inning and each half of the inning. And then there's the total runs, the total hits, and the total errors.
Right, okay.
And that's what you typically look at, that nice little table. That's what you see on like ESPN when you go look up a box score or, the score of a game. And, the numbers that ultimately matter are the runs, in this case for Cincinnati, 14-2. But then you have, they report the hits and the errors as well, which I thought was interesting. But
now, curiously, I would love to know if the hits for the Reds are higher than 14 or less than 14.
It's higher. It's 17.
Okay, so that typically means a lot of folks getting hits and a lot of rallies where someone will get a hit, they'll get a single, they'll get on base, another person will come at bat, they'll get a single, you'll have two men on base, then someone could hit a home run or get a double, and you'll get both of those runs home. That typically means that the pitcher was doing an okay job of at least getting them in there. They're not, giving up a lot of walks to where there are four balls and having the bases be filled by folks who are not getting hits. If the number of hits was lower than the number of runs, then you're definitely in a territory where there are like, 3 walks and then a home run, or 2 walks and then a home run, or walking in folks who were on third, or things like that.
Right. And then I was basically going to prove that I knew a little bit about baseball by explaining runs, hits, and errors for people who may not be familiar with this. So a run is basically when you advance through all 3 bases and make it back to the home plate safely. That's a run. That can either be a home run, which is basically where you do it all at once, or sort of in sequence where, you advance one base at a time, basically, through other batters, basically after you hitting and advancing the base, which forces you to advance the base that you're on and eventually make it around.
Right. So if you take a look actually at our album artwork, I guess this is a really good reason why we decided to use this album artwork instead of maybe another designed one. You can
please look at your phone now.
That's right. You can look at the bottom of the sort of diamond that we have there, and you'll go from that bottommost peak to the one on the right, then to the one at the top, then to the one on the left, and then back down to the one at the bottom, and that would be considered a run. So whether that is done by going to first and staying on that one for a little while, or whether that is, like you said, a home run where the ball goes out of the ballpark and they go all the way around the bases, that either one can result in a run.
Right. And then a hit is just if you hit the ball such that you are able to make it to first base.
First, second, or third. All would basically be considered a hit.
Right. Well, to make it to a base, I guess. Yeah.
Also, a home run is also considered a hit. I should say that.
And then an error is a little bit more fuzzy to me. And I think that's because it's kind of a fuzzy concept in general, which is to say that I think it's kind of subjective, is it not?
It is, and it's typically described by someone on staff, sort of like inside of the broadcast booth area, that is known as the official scorer, and the official scorer will determine whether or not something was an error. An error oftentimes is described as if someone is able to, and there's probably a better definition of this out there. I'm just sort of off the dome with this. It is typically described as if they could have made the play, but did not make the play, then it should be an error.
So this could be such a thing as catching a ball, but then like dropping it from your mitt, for example, such that, a batter is able to run further.
Correct. So if it should have been an out, or if something should have happened, then that would be considered an error if it did not happen. So oftentimes, if something where a batter hits a ball to third base, the third baseman runs up to it, gloves it, and is about to throw it, but doesn't make the transfer from their glove hand to their throwing hand well enough, and the batter is able to make it to first base, that could be considered an error. It could also be that throw was made actually errantly, where they're going to throw to first, but they throw it way over the first baseman's head. That could also be an error.
And so the end result of an error basically is that a runner is also able to advance to a base, but it's distinguished from a hit in that an error is a result of basically a what does Wikipedia call it? Misplay.
Yeah, you'll have to, I think, take a look at one actually happening to kind of fully understand what that's like.
Right.
But yeah, no,
it's difficult to describe, and even Wikipedia sort of struggles to describe it in unambiguous terms.
Right. All right. So they had.
But anyway, those are the three numbers that are reported for each game for each team.
And did they dictate the winning pitcher and the losing pitcher or anything like that, or is that sort of listed separately?
They did. It is. I clicked away from it now. The winning pitcher is Gutierrez. The losing pitcher is Snow.
Okay. Now, I will say, do not take too much of that to heart. Those names likely and most definitely may not be on the starting rotation of either team. And
right,
you're not going to probably derive that much usefulness from those. But
yeah. And as you said, you mentioned, that teams will pull their starters, early and things like that. It makes sense. That makes sense as a reason for, I'm seeing a lot of scores that I would consider high for a regular season baseball game. And I think it makes sense in the context of, like you said, individual development rather than team strategy. The score, these games don't really matter score wise. What matters is training your your players to play more effectively. So it doesn't really matter how many runs.
And I would say also it's used as a tool for seeing whether someone can get the job at some sort of position on the team.
Right.
So if you've got...
It's a little bit like tryouts.
It definitely is about tryouts, especially for the starting rotation. That changes pretty much every single year, unless you have, 5 franchise players that are all, Hall of Fame level players that you're likely going to go to every single year. Those spots are up for grabs all the time. If someone's not on during spring training, they're not going to make the starting lineup for whatever team it is. They're going to be put on the bench. If they're a long-standing player, maybe they'll be put on the bench early and just be sort of a defensive replacement later on in the game. But, this is definitely a time for folks to shine. It's not about like all-star game level, like we're just going to hit it and kind of jog to first base. They're still hustling really hard. They are still trying to get a hit. They're still trying to get a strikeout. It's not necessarily practice purely for practice. You're still trying to win, but the changes that are made at the managerial level, which dictates a lot more of the game than you may think at first blush, are the things that are going to be very, very different from a normal major league game. Like we said, you'll typically pull players early, especially if they're going to be players who you do not want to get hurt. A lot of baseball is about both persistence, I would say, and like conditioning and being able to do a certain thing for a very long time. If you're an outfielder, you have to stand in the outfield for 9 innings, and that can be daunting, very, very daunting. You will rarely see an outfield out in a spring training game just standing there for 9 innings. They'll maybe be in there for 3, 4, 5 or 6 maximum towards the end of spring training, and then you'll get switched out for another one. Rosters in spring training, I believe, are 40 deep currently. And as the season progresses, or as the preseason progresses, you will get that down to roughly about the 25 that you're going to go into the regular season with. And
is there a deadline by which they have to finalize that?
There is, and off the top of my head, I do not know it. But I will say...
I just know that in other sports, there's like the day at which those decisions must be made.
Yeah, I will say that, to be honest, it doesn't matter that much. In baseball, there is so much movement, and there are so many contingencies put in place where if someone does end up going on what's called the disabled list, which is like when you get hurt, you end up on this list that is a non-roster list. This is just sort of like you can be in limbo outside of the team. Teams are able to pull someone in from kind of anywhere. They can be from a minor league franchise that the team also owns, or they can move folks over from kind of anywhere. There are trades that happen mid-season. There is a trade deadline. We'll get to that, I don't know, couple of episodes in sometime in the summer. But there are a lot of movement. There is a lot of movement that is done in the regular season, and I don't think it really matters that much. One of the sort of things that signals like, hey, we are ready for the regular season is when you set your opening day rotation, or your opening day starter, rather. That is typically going to be your number one pitcher. That's going to be the person that you want to have their home debut and fill the seats and bring in the most tickets for that day and kind of embody a lot of what you want the team to be this year and things like that. It's sort of this celebratory / ceremonial, like, here we go. This is who we want to put forth for the baseball season. It's pretty interesting, but I don't think there is like a definitive, set date that I feel like really is something that I watch closely every single year. But we will be definitely keeping an eye out for opening day. That's the one thing where, as spring training rolls on, it's real easy to get bored, I would say, with baseball that doesn't count. You're kind of like, yeah, okay, yep, let's get to the real thing. Like, you guys seem like during NFL, the thought is, we don't want to hurt ourselves, and why are we playing these games where they absolutely do not count, where we practiced all off season and during the summer, and now we're here hitting each other, hurting ourselves before these games count and they feel useless. Baseball definitely has that feeling a lot less, but towards the end feels like it's dragging. And you do also definitely still run the risk of players getting injured. There's repetitive strain definitely put on pitchers, and you will not see them go deep into games because they just don't count. So I'm super duper looking forward to the regular season starting, but I'm also I'm ready to catch a few games of spring training and listen to my normal radio calls from my hometown folks and get that going. And
I'm going to figure out some way of watching or listening to games, because there is actually coming up as we record this, our two teams are playing each other in spring training this week.
They are. Yes. I am very, very much looking forward to that. We pointed that out, I believe, last episode, and I think there's an opportunity to probably pull out a couple of key plays. Usually ESPN or someone will throw together, or the team themselves will throw together like this. Here's the highlight roll of everything that happened during the game. Unfortunately, I don't know if this one's going to be televised, so I have a feeling that it's just going to be the radio call. But I think you and I need to set up an MLB subscription here ahead of this so that we can jump on this train and be able to listen to this when this is available. So very, very much looking forward to this.
Typing in my info now.
Credit card. You got it.
All right. Better not read my number out on air. 4, 3, no.
I also, this may be an interesting list to go through. I found a genius.com list of a glossary of baseball terms. And this...
Is this the same so-called genius that explains lyrics of songs?
I believe it is. Yes. So if you're looking, yes,
well,
search
pivoted.
lyrics and more. Yeah, they've got baseball terms now.
Just annotate everything.
Annotating life. They've got a lot
baseball.
Here. This may have been because I was looking for a clever name for our movie segment of baseball movies, because we have actually been getting a lot of suggestions over in our Discord.
Yeah, I wanted to call out a couple.
I did too, yeah. So this is, I guess we've got a section here towards the end of the show where we can kind of do our letterboxed list change log, where we'll go over some of the suggestions that we've received from listeners.
Yeah. Well, I want to say we had some great suggestions for the name of this movie segment whenever we decide to do it. Ultra Nerd in the Discord said that there are a lot of picture options related to puns, switching picture with pitcher, so on and so forth, which I like. We have to think about if there's some good ones there.
I feel like that's probably the strongest, honestly. Like I had a few. Pitcher's Duel is, that's good. Pitcher's Park, relief pitcher.
I do like Ultra Nerd suggested designated picture, and I think that's probably my favorite at the moment. But there's not one that's making me go like, that's the one.
Yeah, well, see, now the actually in me is saying designated hitter is the one that you'll want, and designated pitcher is not a thing.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's a little, like I want it.
Well, it's just whatever pitcher. They're the designated pitcher.
Well, I will say, listen, we have a starting pitcher. Pitch. Are we going to have to say pitcher or pitcher?
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so maybe as we say this out loud, suddenly this sounds like not such a great idea.
I love the idea.
Please suggest any and all ideas that don't involve us having to say picture and picture.
Yeah. Yes, and I agree. We'll find one. This is really good.
Lest I adopt a country drawl and just call everything a picture. That was a great picture we watched.
It's true. Some of the others I had, Batter's Box Office was one. Double play feature.
That one, I thought that was close.
Okay. Like a double feature, you just, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But then I feel like if we only watch one movie, then doesn't that kind of...
Well, see, that's the thing. But that's sort of like setting, we've got to watch two every time.
Yeah,
That's rough.
I don't want to commit to
can't. And then Batflix, which is like, bat flips are a hot thing. That's a hot topic.
To me, that sounded like a Batman thing.
Yeah, it does. It definitely sounds more like a Ben Affleck thing.
Yeah. That's actually our new podcast reviewing all of the Batman movies.
Just the Ben Affleck ones. It's only one episode right now, but it's...
Oh, no.
It's it'll get better, I promise.
No.
So let's take a look at some of the suggestions that we've received over on the Discord. You can also be sure to send over your suggestions to @baseline_show on Twitter or movies@baseline.show if you want to email those to us.
And if you want to join the Discord and more directly send us suggestions, you can become a patron of Good Stuff FM.
That's right.
And that entitles you to join the Discord. That's patreon.com/goodstuff if you want to sign up there.
Yep.
Yeah, so we received handful of suggestions here. Ultra Nerd suggested The Natural, which is a film from 1984. I know nothing about that film, so that'll be interesting. And then Bornt on the Discord suggested 4 films. Soul of the Game from 1996. The Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings from 1976. That's a heck of a name for a film. That's piqued my interest already. A League of Their Own from 1992, and 8 Men Out from 1988. And I believe that last one is about the Chicago Black Sox. Is that right?
The great Chicago White Sox team of 1919. Saddest team.
Or am I just getting confused because it's White Sox 1919?
Yeah, it looks like...
Gamblers. Yes, yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay. And he had also suggested Major League. I don't know if we had that one already. That sounds familiar. And then Soul of the Game. Yes, Soul of the Game.
And then Haroldina in the chat room also mentioned Little Big League.
So what are we up to now? Where does that put us?
I am adding these right now. I think the biggest thing for me is that all of these are very formative movies. None of these have been recent movies. Not a single one.
Right.
They are all about sort of...
Well, and personally, I struggle to think of a recent baseball movie, to be honest. I can't call one to mind.
It's interesting because these sort of do fit our episode 2 theme very well, like setting the baseline of your baseball knowledge, and a lot of these are likely formative movies for most of the folks who are recommending them. So,
right, like I had said that Angels in the Outfield was sort of a movie that I remember from my childhood, and I remember a little bit of The Sandlot too.
Right.
So those are formative movies. Yeah. So it is interesting to observe the ties that people have to baseball from movies that they saw as kids.
Yeah, definitely. I think
we just got another suggestion. This one's hot off the presses, The Big Show, which is a very, there's a lot of films by that name. But yes, if you have further suggestions for movies that we should watch, please send them to us. Although our list is getting quite long. So I don't know when we're going to get through all of these, but it'll be eventually.
It's going to be its own show, Andrew. I know it.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. What if we had them as bonus episodes and called them extra innings?
Oh, Yes. Okay. Done. Yep. Baseline extra innings. That's the goodness gracious. Patreon.com/goodstuff.
Got it in one.
Perfect. I think that's going to do it for us for this episode as well. As usual.
Oh, actually, I have a segment I want to do.
Oh, please.
So, I also want to start a recurring segment here where we recognize minor league baseball teams that we think have merit for various reasons. And today I'd like to recognize the Carolina Mudcats, which are a Class A advanced affiliate for the Milwaukee Brewers. For 4 games of this upcoming season, they will be the Carolina Microbrews. And I think that that's delightful. And that's why...
Very good name.
This week they are recognized as our minor league team of note.
Team of the week, for sure. I like that, especially, obviously, given my day job. That hits close to home. Love that. And also the branding. I don't know if you saw their... Yeah,
we'll put a link in the show notes to an article about this. But yeah, there's really good branding. On the hat is a like a barrel that says microbrews on it, like a beer barrel. And then they have like a little, what would you call this? The circular logo insignia.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's got hops on it, which I think is also pretty delightful.
That's good. That's very good.
It's got hops, and there's like, it says MB for microbrews, and at the bottom, sort of ghosted in, it looks like a tap to me. Are you seeing that?
No, I'm gonna have to take a look.
Okay, I'm gonna send it over to you. Isn't that look under the MB? It's very faint, but it looks like a little thing of a tap.
Zooming, enhance. That looks to me, so it is a tap on the actual barrel itself. So if you look at what's behind the MB, it's got.
Oh, yeah. That is. Oh, yes, I see that now. In the negative space, as it were, is an actual barrel.
Yes, right behind the MB.
Yeah.
It's a very complex logo, I will say.
It is. There's a lot of depth to it. It's very good.
And so it looks like they're doing this just for a little while.
Yeah, just for 4 games, it says.
I love that. You can also, I guess, buy gear for the microbrews, which is very cool. It's that MB sort of insignia on a hat embroidered on there. It's very good. I should say also, I guess, AAA ball or A advanced minor league affiliates are not diminutive versions of their major league counterparts. They are actually still same-sized human beings, so... the actual name microbrews does not in fact speak directly to their diminutive stature. Strictly right. or even their team size. It's not 5 players versus 9 or anything. It is simply a play on beer, which I love.
So yes, the Carolina Mudcats are our team of the week. If you'd like to suggest minor league teams to be our team of the week, we accept any suggestions for particularly good logos. We have some in the pipeline already, but you can email teamoftheweek@baseline.show.
And I've definitely got a couple suggestions, some homegrown.
There is a lot of graphic design innovation going on in minor league baseball, and we intend to showcase it.
Yes, please. Absolutely. You can also send over some future topic suggestions. We'll take them. Topics@baseline.show is our email.
I want to give a quick rundown of some of the topics we have in the pipeline. Aaron L.M. Goodwin suggested that we discuss why the only place he ever sees trough-style urinals is at ballparks. We will be getting to that.
It's going to be more of an investigative journalism type thing, I believe, for that episode. We're going to have to do some...
That's going to be our serial episode. Right,
some like on-premises recording, potentially. So look forward to that.
Just going to be a lot of noises from a handheld tape recorder being mishandled.
Binaural.
Things like pine tar, pitcher's mud, and so on. We'll be talking about things like that and how they are a part of the game. The one that I'm excited about, which is first on our list, organ music.
Which you may have heard actually as a part of our intro for this show and sort of outro.
That's true. We do use organ music.
It's inextricably linked to sort of the vibe of baseball, but also, I guess, kind of other sports as well. But there is a very distinct sound to the one that is involved in baseball. So very much looking forward to talking about that with you. We will also probably follow up on our personal experiences of our teams playing each other coming up here soon. Again, we are likely recording somewhere between Sundays and Mondays usually. So if you want to get a topic to us, or you've got a question for us, get it to us before then, and our episodes post every Thursday.
Yep. Going forward, it'll be on Thursdays. So
that's right.
Thanks for those of you who listened and said such nice things. It was much better response than I expected.
Yeah.
It seems a lot of people care about baseball.
Yeah, it's super, super awesome. Actually, just hearing some of the stories that came in through email, folks saying that they were excited to hear us talk about baseball, which is wild to me. I loved hearing the feedback. Thank you so much. Keep it coming. Obviously, you can also rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. That will help folks find us, and you can find links to that over at baseline.show or at goodstuff.fm/baseline.
This has been Baseline, and that's the ballgame.
Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or account of this game without the express written consent of Goodstuff.fm is prohibited.